Much contemporary art focuses on the proliferation of data tracking into everyday life. What was once a specialist technology, big data has proliferated into the ordinary and most common aspects of our everyday lives. Big data is information amassed to the point of incalculability, existing as an endless stream of unprecedented scale, aggregating flows of people, their places, things and activities into even larger masses, says Lindsay Kaplan. The information of our daily interactions and movements are not only tracked and analyzed but mediated for us. Though data itself is mostly hidden from us, it remains to be always present and active within our daily life and undoubtedly affects how we experience and understand the world around us. Within the modern surveillance society that we live in today, the individual becomes an archive of data and data trails are a harvestable, minimal resource managed by informational biopolitics, says Hito Sterl. How do we interact with data ourselves in the everyday? What intersections does data traverse in regards to information surveillance, ownership, the public and the private? What follows is our investigation into how artists today are interrogating and utilizing data within their practices as something that is active and inherent to our everyday in the digital age. The Nefertiti is an artistic intervention by two German artists, Nora Al-Badri and Jan Nicolai Nels. Within its production, the artists adopted a hacker mentality to covertly scan the bust of Nefertiti using a Kinect, a 3D scanner device, at the News Museum in Berlin. They then made this 3D dataset available online, as a torrent download, for anyone and everybody around the world to access, study, print or remix via the internet. Focusing on the method of dissemination, the Nefertiti utilizes the accessibility of the internet to defy the restrictive systems in place when viewing cultural objects in museum spaces and to reinforce the especially guarded nature of the News Museum in regards to the accessibility of their own bust of Nefertiti 3D data. By doing this, the artists liberated the data from the restricted museum while interrogating the politics of collection and possession of data and museum artifacts, while exposing the tensions between ownership of data and its public service. Through the online iteration of the Nefertiti, the dataset and, by extension, the original artifact is made publicly accessible and consequently provides the audience with the ability to access its data that is geographically and physically unattainable by liberating the artifact from isolation, enabling free access and proliferating the data of the bust of Nefertiti into the everyday. Julian Oliver's Transparency Grenade continues this investigation of how data privacy, surveillance and ownership operate within the public spheres of the everyday. Transparency Grenade is a replica grenade made with translucent resin and sterling silver, embedded around a modified Linux-based computer, microphone and wireless antenna. When released, the functional trigger mechanism intercepts data from local networks and reroutes it to an external server where it is stored, mined and represented. In the everyday, the grenade is intended to record information traveling between corrupt officials, making easily accessible the. In this work, Oliver addresses private and public spheres of information dissemination and perceived privacy surrounding personal and public data, raising questions around the ways in which data is utilized to obscure and confuse, and also manipulated for gain or profit. In making physically visible the ways in which we move through the world online, Transparency Grenade brings to the fore data systems and hierarchies constantly operating in the background of the everyday. That new upcoming data artist Laurie Frick uses her everyday life as a form of art using data and self-tracking. She states that we're more than halfway through the decade when humans shift from mysterious beings to big data algorithms and uses it for her work as an acceptance for the future rather than be scared and ignore it. Frick believes that the everyday tracked data of her and everyone's life may become a new way into looking into personal identity and future. She has done many works such as Floating Data 2016, which is an installation for a data company that represents her self-tracking of her travels around the city. She used serious data tracking skills such as using technological gadgets to trace her steps, time, location and site as well as using her own memory to see a comparison. In another work, Walking, Frick questions, what if sensors, cameras and GPS collected daily movement and cumulatively displayed your walking patterns? Would it be motivating to move around and walk more every day? She uses a Fitbit, MeTracks and a CAD-CAM to collect data and hand-build these collage works, as well as working out the software algorithm that could capture and display hand-built pattern based on the pace and collective movement each week. Her other work, 7 Days, 2015, tracks her time using leather and aluminium and data from the Multinational Time Survey, color-coded by activity and quantity of time spent in 2015. For this work, she looks into what the psyche and personality will look like if we were to identify ourselves by time spent on activities. Your sense of who you are is based on the recollections of recent events, and what you are doing and intend to do. It's your basic orientation in the world, says Frick. As we live in society today, every single action we take, every word we speak is constantly being recorded into large masses of incalculable figures in the background. Through these artists, we understand that data itself isn't something that is kept private and hidden, but rather something that should be explored, valued and extended into the society and its people. By implementing data in everyday lives, people can gain a greater understanding into both the world and their own personal identity.